You ever watch a game and just know the team is about to fumble the bag? Like they're up, there's momentum, everything looks like it's finally clicking. And then boom, one bad decision sends it all straight into the abyss. Yeah, that was the Indiana Fever against the Washington Mystics. Again, the final minutes were like deja vu in slow motion. The kind of deja vu where you're screaming at your screen, clutching your drink, because you already know how it ends. And no surprise here.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
It ended exactly the way it always does, with Kelsey Mitchell forcing a shot, Sophie Cunningham screaming into the void for the ball, Caitlin Clark visibly frustrated, and Stephanie White making coaching decisions that had fans wondering if she was secretly rooting for the other team. This game wasn't just another loss. This was a masterclass in how not to manage a team in the clutch. The Fever, still clinging to whatever's left of their playoff hopes, desperately needed this win. The Mystics, for context, aren't exactly world beaters this season. This was the kind of matchup the Fever should have handled. And yet, what do we get instead? A perfectly avoidable collapse. Let's talk about the elephant on the court, Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell has been with the team for years. She's a vet, a known scorer, and for some reason, still the default option when it comes to crunch time, even though, game after game, she just does not deliver. It's not even subtle anymore. Fans are tracking it, players are reacting to it, and Twitter, well, X, but we're not calling it that, is roasting it. With under 10 seconds to go, the Fever had a chance to tie or win. Down just a couple points. A timeout had been called. Everyone's setting up. The camera cuts to Sophie Cunningham, practically standing alone on the wing. No defender within 6 feet. She's clapping. She's ready. The ball goes into Mitchell. A wild, off-balance, contested fadeaway. Brick. Game over. You could hear the collective "why" from Fever fans everywhere. And here's the thing. This isn't new. This is a pattern. Mitchell is routinely trusted with the ball in late-game situations, and it almost always ends in a miss. But it's not even just the missed shots. It's the decision-making. There's tunnel vision, a sense of "this is my moment," that ignores what's actually happening on the floor. Meanwhile, Sophie Cunningham, who has been statistically clutch, is left hanging like a forgotten NPC. To make it worse, reports from inside the locker room suggested there was tension post-game. One source even claimed there were sharp words exchanged, specifically over that final possession. And while no one's going on record, it doesn't take a detective to see that Caitlin Clark wasn't thrilled. The cameras caught her shaking her head after the timeout. Body language doesn't lie, folks. She knew that play wasn't going to work. It's not just about one game. This loss, this moment, it's the tip of a very frustrating iceberg. Because the Fever have talent. That's what makes this so maddening. They have enough to be competitive, even dangerous. And yet, they keep tripping over their own feet. Let's rewind a bit. Stephanie White took over this team with the promise of structure. A fresh start. A chance to mold this roster into a cohesive, playoff-ready unit. And for a hot minute, it looked promising. There were flashes of chemistry, moments of brilliance, and a couple of key wins that made people think, hey, maybe they're turning the corner. But then came the fourth quarters, and the blown leads, and the decisions. White's rotations became a mystery box of confusion. Hot hand players getting benched, defensive mismatches ignored. And in this case, the repeated elevation of Mitchell to clutch queen status when her performance screams otherwise. Now, here's where things go from frustrating to infuriating. After the game, Stephanie White was asked about the final play. Her answer? She stood by it, said it was the right look, and praised Mitchell for creating her own shot. That's coach speak for we don't want to talk about it. But the internet wasn't having it. Fans immediately pointed out that Sophie Cunningham was not only wide open, but that she's been consistently effective in late-game situations. She's confident. She's composed. She doesn't force bad shots, and she actually hits them. So when rumors started swirling that Cunningham was being blamed internally for not being in a better position, or worse, for not demanding the ball, people were livid. Imagine being the one wide open, only to be told afterward that it was somehow your fault for not doing more. That's gaslight-level logic. It's also worth noting. This isn't the first time Cunningham's been left out in clutch situations. She's been quietly sidelined during fourth quarters before, even after strong showings in the first three. The pattern here is starting to look less like an accident and more like a coaching philosophy, and it's not working. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, the Fever's biggest name and arguably the most game-aware player on the roster, looks more and more disengaged in these final possessions. She's shown time and again that she can orchestrate a winning play, but she's not being put in that position. Instead, she's spacing the floor while a known, inefficient ISO play unfolds. And the fans? Oh, they noticed. Social media lit up with memes, breakdowns, and outright rants. One viral post called the final play the dumbest decision of the WNBA season. Another mocked Stephanie White's clipboard strategy, suggesting she drew the play up in crayon. Brutal. There was even a trust issues power ranking going around, where Mitchell and White were tied at the top, just above airline baggage handlers and movie trailers for comedy films. And while we can laugh at the memes, the real issue here is the morale. The Fever are sliding fast. Their playoff chances are taking hits every time these late-game blunders happen. And unlike earlier in the season, when fans were willing to chalk it up to growing pains, now it feels like sabotage. It's hard to shake the feeling that this team isn't just losing games, they're losing each other. The trust is breaking down. The body language is louder than any press conference. And unless something changes soon, the Fever are in danger of not just missing the postseason. They're in danger of wasting a roster that should be making noise. Let's hand out some well-deserved fake awards, shall we? Most inevitable plot twist goes to Kelsey Mitchell for once again getting the final shot and doing exactly what everyone feared she would. The You Had One Job award. Stephanie White for choosing the worst option in the biggest moment. Again, the hello? I'm wide open. Medal of Patience. Sophie Cunningham for not launching the ball into the stands after being ignored for the 97th time this season. And finally, the Silent Scream Trophy. Caitlin Clark for managing to keep her composure while watching her team implode in real time. So where do the Fever go from here? That's the million-dollar question. Because this isn't about a single possession anymore. It's about identity, trust, leadership. You can't build a playoff team on might work strategies and ignore the voices and stats screaming for change. Something's got to give, whether it's the pecking order, the play calling, or the overall philosophy. The Fever can't keep pretending this formula is going to magically click. Fans are fed up. The locker room seems divided. And every game that ends like this just adds another layer of tension. At this rate, the Indiana Fever aren't being outplayed. They're outdecisioned. And unless someone takes accountability soon, the season won't just be a disappointment. It'll be a warning sign for what happens when talent is squandered by stubborn leadership. So congratulations, Indiana. You didn't just lose a winnable game. You might have lost the locker room too. And look, if this were a one-time thing, a fluke, a misread, a moment of miscommunication, we could chalk it up to the chaos of live sports. That happens. Not every play ends in a miracle buzzer beater. But the problem with the Indiana Fever isn't the loss itself. It's the predictability of a loss. The fact that you could almost script it before the ball even goes up. Late game opportunity? Check. Kelsey Mitchell ISO? Check. Other players standing around like NPCs in a video game. Cutscene? Check. The shot clanks, the opposing team rebounds, and the Fever walk off the court with that all-too-familiar look of how do we blow that? We know how. Everyone knows how. And the fact that the team still doesn't seem to want to fix it, that's the real horror movie here. Let's zoom in on the dynamic between Mitchell and Cunningham, because that's where a lot of the tension is bubbling up. You've got Sophie, who's been a reliable shooter all season, especially when the clock is winding down. She doesn't need the spotlight, but when she gets her moments, she makes them. She spaces the floor well, moves without the ball, and doesn't force things. In a team plagued by late-game chaos, she's one of the few who stays composed. And yet, she's treated like a background character in someone else's drama. She's ready to be the hero, but the script keeps handing the final line to someone who's been bombing auditions all season. Mitchell, on the other hand, plays like she's convinced every possession is her redemption arc. And it's not just that she misses, everyone misses. It's how she misses. The ball stopping, the over-dribbling, the absolute refusal to even glance at the player waving their arms wide open in the corner. Cunningham could have been doing cartwheels, and Mitchell still would have taken that contested fadeaway. You can't help but wonder if it's an ego thing. Or worse, a coaching thing. Because here's where Stephanie White comes back into the spotlight. Let's not forget, this is the person designing these plays. She's the one deciding who gets the ball when the game is on the line. And she keeps going back to the same broken well. What's wild is that White isn't some rookie coach. She knows the game. She's been around. She understands matchups and scouting reports and late-game scenarios, which is what makes these decisions feel less like oversight and more like denial. Like she's doubling down on a player because of loyalty or history or reputation, not reality. And it's starting to wear on the team. You can see it in how they move, the hesitation, the body language. Caitlin Clark, who came into the league with the kind of media storm that could swallow lesser players whole, is trying to play facilitator and competitor and leader and rookie all at once. And when she watches plays collapse because of predictable choices she has no control over, it shows. There was a moment after the Mystics game where Clark didn't even look at Mitchell when they walked off the court. She looked past her, not in a petty way, but in that I can't keep pretending this is okay way. That little silent exchange said more than any post-game presser. And speaking of post-game, oh boy, that press conference was tense. Mitchell tried to stay diplomatic, saying things like we just didn't execute, and it was a team decision. But her eyes, her tone, defensive, like she knew the narrative was shifting and fast. Like she could already feel the backlash bubbling on social media. White's comments, meanwhile, only made things worse. Instead of acknowledging the misstep or owning the questionable decision, she leaned into it. Said she trusted Mitchell, that she'd take that shot again if given the chance. That line right there, that's the sound of a coach painting herself into a corner. Because now, every loss that follows will be framed by this. Every time Mitchell bricks a clutch shot, every time Cunningham is left waving her arms in vain, every time Caitlin Clark shakes her head as the play breaks down, it's all going to circle back to this game. This decision, you'd think after blowing so many late leads this season, maybe, just maybe, someone would try something new. Give the hot hand the green light. Let Clark run the set. Or, maybe give the ball to the open shooter with the actual clutch stats. But no, we're trapped in a Groundhog Day nightmare where logic goes to die. Fans are losing patience. Fast. And not just the casual fans either. The diehards, the ones who've stuck with this team through the rebuild, the ugly seasons, the endless rotation of coaches and draft picks, they're starting to tune out. Because this isn't about talent. This is about choice. About watching a team self-sabotage in real time. It's frustrating because you want to root for the Fever. They've got pieces. They've got stories. They've got one of the biggest names in women's basketball leading the charge. But the drama behind the scenes is starting to overshadow everything else. And not the fun kind of drama, the kind that makes you question if this team even wants to win. Let's be real. It doesn't matter how many big-name players you stack on a roster if you don't use them properly. You could put a championship-caliber lineup on the court, and if you keep drawing up the same broken plays for the same unreliable finishers, you're going nowhere. What the Fever are doing right now is like buying a luxury sports car and then refusing to take it out of first gear. And the sad part? The window for change is closing. Fast. The WNBA season doesn't wait around. Playoff standings don't care about feelings. If the Fever keep dropping winnable games because of stubborn strategy and mismanaged crunch time, they're not just missing the playoffs, they're throwing away the chance to build something real. The locker room chemistry is already showing cracks. You've got young stars watching veterans fumble. You've got role players being blamed for standing in the right spot. You've got a fan base begging for accountability and instead being handed the same tired excuses. So here we are. Another game. Another loss. Another round of finger-pointing, and we'll learn from its sound bites. But will they? Or will we be right back here next week, watching the same script play out again? Mitchell with the ball, Cunningham waving her arms, Clark shaking her head, and White drawing up the same doomed play. Because if something doesn't change soon, the only thing the Fever will be competing for is the biggest missed opportunity of the year award. Actually, let's go ahead and add that to the trophy case. Biggest missed opportunity. The Indiana Fever for having the talent, the momentum, and the story, and still finding a way to fumble it all in the final minutes. This team deserves better. The players deserve better. The fans definitely deserve better. And unless White wakes up and starts coaching based on what's actually happening on the court, not what she wants to happen, this team is going to keep spiraling. It's not about playing favorites. It's about playing smart. Trust the players who earn it. Let the stats speak louder than loyalty. And for the love of basketball, give Sophie the ball. Because here's the kicker. When you consistently ignore the player who's actually earning those moments, when you leave your most clutch shooter open like she's holding a do not pass to me sign, it stops being bad luck. It becomes sabotage. And maybe it's not intentional. Maybe it's not a secret vendetta. Maybe Stephanie White isn't sitting there like a cartoon villain, twirling a metaphorical mustache and saying, let's absolutely blow this game in the dumbest way possible. But even if the sabotage is accidental, the results are the same. Losses, frustration, momentum slipping like sand through fingers that just won't grip the obvious solution. You think Sophie Cunningham doesn't feel that? You think she's not aware she's being iced out of moments she's proven she can handle? You don't have to be a mind reader to feel her energy shift every time she sets up, makes herself available, times the cut or plants her feet behind the arc, and then watches the ball fly in the opposite direction. Again, there's a different kind of sting in being consistently overlooked when the clock's ticking. It's not just disrespect. It's erasure. And it messes with chemistry in ways fans don't always see until it's too late. You know what happens when you keep doing that? Teammates stop trusting the play. They start freelancing. They stop cutting hard. They stop spacing with purpose. And instead of 5-player unit, you get one frantic scorer, a few decoys, and a whole lot of wasted motion. That's what we're watching now. We're seeing a team with just enough potential to tease you, and just enough dysfunction to disappoint you. Like one of those cursed lottery tickets where you scratch off the first 2 numbers and think, I'm about to win big, only for the third to leave you broke and yelling at cardboard. Let's talk about the long-term effects here, because this isn't just about losing games. It's about culture. Culture is what keeps good teams afloat when things get ugly. Culture is what makes players buy in even when they're not the star. But when players feel invisible, when reliable options are passed over for the same predictable mess, that culture curdles into resentment. And look, nobody's saying Sophie Cunningham should be the face of the franchise. She knows her role, but she also knows she can deliver in moments that matter. That's why this cut's so deep, because she's not asking for 30 shots a night. She's asking for one opportunity, one clean look when it counts. She's earned it. She's proven it. And somehow, every time, she ends up watching the final shot from the worst seat in the house, the one on the court where no one sees you. Let's not sugarcoat this. Stephanie White's system is broken. It's the kind of broken that doesn't just lead to losses. It leads to locker room silence. Players avoiding eye contact. Trust leaking out through every timeout huddle. That silent rot where everyone's technically doing their job, but nobody believes in the plan anymore. And it's starting to show, not just on the court, but in interviews, in the body language, in the way Clark's smiles are getting thinner, in the way Mitchell is doubling down instead of evolving, in the way Cunningham, who once radiated fearless energy, is now looking more like someone trying not to scream during a group project gone wrong. The fan reaction hasn't helped either. And not because fans are being unfair, but because they're being absolutely correct. These aren't unhinged conspiracy theories. This isn't your typical sports Twitter overreacting situation. This is frustration rooted in facts. People see what's happening. They've got eyes. They're watching Cunningham drain threes with ease in the second quarter and then get ghosted in the fourth. They're watching Clark beg for a more dynamic offense. They're watching Mitchell play hero ball when the cape hasn't worked in months. So when Stephanie White stands at the podium and gives us that same tight-lipped, we believe in our process line, it doesn't land. It just echoes. Hollow, tired, almost defiant. That's not strategy. That's pride. And pride, as we've all seen in sports, is the fastest way to turn a hopeful season into a slow, televised implosion. Let's not forget what's at stake here. The Fever aren't just another middling team. This is a franchise that went all in on building a future around talent like Caitlin Clark. That's not a light decision. That's a massive investment. That's selling tickets, building narratives, feeding national storylines. That sponsors primetime games and league momentum. The whole WNBA world is watching this team. And right now, they're watching it unravel. Because nothing kills momentum faster than bad decision-making. And not just bad once, but bad consistently, predictably, and stubbornly. Every single time, White draws up a final possession that ends with a contested Mitchell prayer, while better options stand unused, she's writing another chapter in the How Not to Lead playbook. And if you're Caitlin Clark, if you're looking around, trying to navigate the intensity of the pros, build chemistry, and actually win, what message are you getting from this? You're seeing a coaching system that doesn't reward efficiency, a rotation that values reputation over execution, a playbook that seems allergic to change. And maybe, just maybe, you're wondering if this is where your growth is going to stall. Because make no mistake, Clark came here to compete, not to be a prop in someone else's failed experiments. She wants to build something, to win. But she can't do that if her teammates are misused and her coach keeps gambling on players who've shown time and time again they can't carry the weight. If you're the Indiana Fever front office, you've got to be hearing the rumble, the whispers, the growing concern that your young core is going to rot in place if something doesn't shift. Because this isn't just a bad stretch of games. This is an organizational decision-making crisis, a pattern that's gone from questionable to dysfunctional in record time. And the players feel it. They know when something isn't working. They know when leadership is bluffing. And when you keep trusting the wrong people in the biggest moments, it stops being a play call problem. It becomes a trust problem. Once trust is gone, you don't just lose games. You lose locker rooms. You lose stars. You lose future free agents who see this chaos and think, yeah, no thanks.